Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One. I thought I would give you an update on what happened. If you remember the last video, I was showing you the new indicator column and the divergence column. And I had the dollar Canadian up on the chart. And at the time, if you want to go back and look, the price was 1.3542. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we were on this bar. Well, you can see it dropped down to a low of 13522. So that's 20 pips. So you probably could have got maybe 15, 16, 17, 18 pips out of that trade had you taken the divergence. And that is the power of divergence. It shows you when things are either overheated or super cooled. So you can take advantage, make some profit, drain some banks. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over with you there. But since I've got some minutes to spare here on the video, we can go back into the dashboard. Maybe there's something else people might like to know. Just maybe really quickly, the alert filter count is for the trade column. Maybe I should move that down. So you have to have at least 2 out of the 5 trade indicators to be indicating that you have that situation. So for example, ATR indicator means that you're in the ATR zone, so that might be one, or the holo zone, that would be another, or near, or having a pivot point in the ATR zone, that would be another one. So that's what that does. Show buttons. If it's false, then you just have the text. If it's true, you have the buttons. Change all charts. If you set that to true, except you have to have the buttons turned on, otherwise it won't matter. So, but remember, I've got an EA, so that's why I wasn't using that. But if you have the buttons turned on and that turned on, and when you click it, then all of your charts will change to whatever pair you want to look at. Show messages. We have these little messages that come out here. You can turn those off in case you just don't want them or it's taking up too much of your screen space. So goodbye to the messages. And you can put your own little note in here. That's a message. So you might want to have a saying or a reminder of something. And the message filler, you remember it was way out here. If you have a shorter message, you can just reduce that. 63 is the max. My period, if one of the columns doesn't have a period option, it will go to the my period. My threshold, that is also for the alerts. So if price is within 2 pips of a level, it will turn it magenta. And if you've got the alarm set, sound alarm or mail or push, that'll execute those functions and give you that alert. Oh, if you're wondering what turn off is, if you want to turn it off, you set it to true, and then the indicator turns off, rather than having to delete it from your template and then have to load it back and then load up everything. Or if you forgot to put it on a template, that way you don't lose it. Price column, that just shows you the price. Percent change, and then what period are we going to use for the percent change? And here we have a threshold. So if it's more than 1%, it'll give you the threshold color. Do you want that alert or not? Spread column, what's the spread between the bid and the ask? Threshold, the same thing. Now we've got the price columns, open, high, low, mid, and then the previous high, mid, low, and close. Reason why I don't have previous open, because previous open is usually the same as the price or the close, except on the weekend where you get the gap. We got the range column, and you've got the average range. So how many bars do you want the average? And the range period works for both the range and the average range. And it also works, no, ATR column, which would say, is it in the upper or lower ATR zone, or is it beyond it? The value gives you the actual ATR value, and it uses the same as the range bars. Maybe I should do a different one, but that's the way it works now. And then in the ATR left, that's kind of like room up, room down. Where do we have to go before we hit the ATR? And then we've got the ATR period and the ATR start and end. This is for the ATR column that creates the zone. So we're going to look at ATR 2, ATR 3, all the way up through ATR 13 and 14. Pick out the min and the max, and then create a zone. Okay, the close to open, high minus close and close minus low, that's the GPS. Somebody wanted to have the previous high to close and previous close, or the close to the previous low. That is also like the wick zone indicator. Maybe that's why they wanted it, but that way you can compare it. The fib column has the fib periods and the fib bar. So one day, we're going to use the one day, and I like to use the previous day. But you might want to use the current day, and you set that to 0. The NFP column, that uses the NFP dates, gets the high and low, and lets you know where price is. And if it's right around 1, once again, you can have an alert. Down here are the NFP dates, and I should probably just call them they don't have to be NFP dates. It's just when I created it, that's what I had in mind, but you can use any date you want. The pivot point column lets you know as prices, where price is in relation to a pivot point, and the pivot period's 1 day. Pivot trading plan, there's something called the pivot trading plan, and that column will just basically calculate or just looks at what the price is on the pivots and how the pivots compared to the previous pivots, and let you know what the trading plan is. Basically, it'll tell you, is it bullish, bearish, or sideways. And then the rat column tells you if you're in the rat zone, and you have a rat zone threshold. So that means it has to be within 20 pips of the high or the low, daily high or low. And the minimum range, because if the range is, less than 40, then the rat zone, then the price is always in a rat zone. So you want to have it at least 41, so there's a small space between the upper and lower red rat and green rat zone. The holo column, the highest open, lowest open, I like to do it on the 1 hour. The buy columns, buy zone, wick columns, wick zone, breakout column. So right here we got a period of a day. Is price breaking out of yesterday's high or low? You got a breakout time column. We're going to use the 1 hour, and I have it set default to 3, which is, in my case, it would be the Asian open hour. Then later in the day, I might switch it to 14, which is the hour right before the New York Open, my time. Breakout bars column. What you do with this column is you can have a period and you can have breakout bars. So what this says is, did price break out of the highest high and or highest low of the last 2 hours? That's how you use that column. So we got 3 different breakouts. Inside bar, you know, was you can do on a day or an hour. Was it an inside bar or an outside bar? Real simple. Swap long and short. On some platforms they work. It tells you what your swap rate is. Unfortunately, on the one I use, it doesn't, but some people are lucky. So I did that for them. Weekly gap tells you is there a gap and whether or not it's filled. CPR, central pivot range column. Once again, this is using pivot, so we have 1 day and we can turn the alert on if price gets into that range. Price usually gets to it, and once it gets there, it likes to leave it. Steamroller column, recent addition. I used the 4 hour. If the ATR of the 4 hour, if the current 4 hour candle range is bigger than the ATR, I consider that a steamroller. You don't want to trade against it. Crash zones, that's from the Mighty One. Using the weekly zones, using the range, creates a bunch of zones where price is likely to wind up. The heat column, just fresh out of the oven. No pun intended. Actually, it was intended. It basically tells you where price is in relation to the previous week's high, low, midpoint, top and bottom of the candle. And you can do this for the day if you want. Strength column uses the strength of the individual currencies to determine which one's stronger, which one's weaker, and should you buy the pair or sell the pair. The indicator column, another new one. You can use any of the internal indicators. They start with an I. You can give it the heading that you want. Then you have to load in the parameters. You can tell it how many digits to show. You can give it a threshold max value, a threshold min value. And if you want to, you can use these levels that you can, once again, they're inputs, so you can make these anything you want. And then you can have it color coded according to your level. Okay, and in general, threshold max color, threshold minimum color. The divergence column is new. It works with the indicator column, and it tells you if you have positive or negative divergence. And the trade column, once again, is like my slot machine. It looks at the ATR. If price is in the ATR range or ATR zone, it looks at if it's a holo, highest open, lowest open. Is it in the rat zone? Is it near a pivot point? And has it gone past its minimum threshold, ATR threshold? So if you get at least 3 of those, you got a pretty good reversal trade set up. It's just my chart, x-axis, y-axis, where the indicator is placed on the chart corner. Is corner 0, 1, 2, or 3. My font, that's the font I like to use. I like to use Courier because it's not a proportional font. Font size, button height, button. You don't really have to mess with those. If you say all here, then you get all the symbols. And if you've got something that has like ECN in the name, that's where you do that. And then just the colors for the heading, up, down, equal, buy or sell, the weight color, threshold color again, breakout color, previous. You have an alert color, color for the messages, color for the buttons, and the NFP dates. Well, that's it. I went through that indicator in less than 15 minutes, but that'll just give you a rough idea. Like I said, I'll be making some videos a little bit more in depth, take a little time. We'll load up the parameters and then show you what it looks like. But until then, fellow traders, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. TheRumpledOne signing off.